Okay, welcome back to another edition of the Dirty Verdict Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Peter Taaffe.
I'm your other host, Kyle Herbert.
And I'm your other host, Bill Ogden, full-time litigator Bill Ogden.
Full-time litigator Bill Ogden.
All right, so we talk about legal news stories a lot, but we also like to have very interesting guests to talk about legal issues in a little more depth than you'll get on your 30-minute news evening.
This is the OG. He has been doing what we do, but like with real media outlets.
That's right.
Since before me and Bill were born.
That's right.
And I feel like... Thanks. Introduce him.
Okay, so our guest is Wayne Dolcefino. Wayne, thank you for joining us.
Thanks. You guys have lawyers on a lot, and tonight you have someone who gets sued a lot.
See, there's balance to the universe.
See how much range we have?
Yeah, so it's the circle of life.
Well, Bill is who we typically consult on slander, defamation, and so we're going to count on him to help us on some of these legal aspects.
In Peter's opinion, I am the go-to.
But I'll say, yes, I'm a little bit older than these two guys, but I grew up here, so
from watching
whole time
TV for a long time.
Watching, you were on KTRK Channel 13,
starting in 1985. Before that, KTRH Radio, back when AM radio was like the big investigative news place.
85.
So you were on the radio, KTRK,
KTRH.
Yeah, okay.
79. I worked for Lady Bird before that at KLBJ.
Yeah,
that's where I started.
Very nice. Okay.
I was a DJ. But the news guys made $50 more a month. So I said, hey, I'm in. Sure.
So is that your first job out of college? Oh, yeah. You said...
I was still in college. I used to drive home every weekend to work at KTRH, and I would do the fishing news with these two smelly old fisher guys. And I would go in and read the sort of like, blank-year-old blank was killed in the blank, 100 block of blank.
Yeah.
Those stories.
Yeah.
I would do that every weekend.
So where were you in school?
UT.
Working for Lady Bird Johnson on radio.
I was there, and I was in radio, and I asked my boss if he would give me a raise if I got a degree, and he said, get the hell out of my office. And I dropped out of college with 12 hours left.
You and Michael Dell.
Yeah.
So, but you came to the Channel 13 TV station in 1985?
Yeah, so the KTRH then was a real powerhouse AM news station, and in 1985, a number of people from KTRH went over to Channel 13 and helped form kind of the core of a lot of the reporting that went on there in the 90s, which was the heyday. I was blessed to be part of that heyday, right? I mean, I wasn't obviously as old as Marvin, but I was able to be in that period of time when we were given lots of time to investigate people. We could spend, months off the air if we had to get a story right. And obviously...
Before the race.
Look, it's all over, right? I mean, it's so down the toilet now, journalism, but, it was starting to go down 15 years ago.
This is a good question for you. Somebody that has been historically in journalism back when it was real,
right? Where
do you get your news now?
So, look, I don't know. I watch CNN and Fox, okay? And the only thing that's funny is that CNN actually thinks it's like in the middle, right? And that is like a joke, right? They're the left-wing place. Fox is the right-wing place. MSNBC is the left-wing place, but at least they admit they're
it's the middle place.
I don't think there is a
Al Jazeera.
What is it, BBC?
You can watch them both, and I am stunned at what a different America they present.
You have like President Trump signed into legislation this bill, and then it's like President Trump destroyed the United States by signing this bill. It's like
it's all narrative.
Yeah.
I mean, look, the local stations just have gone back to if it bleeds, it leads, right? That's all they can do is cover that and maybe a press conference, right? So you have a press conference, you file a lawsuit, it becomes privileged. It's easy for them to report that. They can do that. But anything more substantive than that, they're not going to do it. The nationals, and so my company, we don't compete with the other media. I want media joining me in a fray. I think it's fine, right? I don't care. But sometimes I will have an issue and I will go to a particular media organization because I know they're liberals, right? They care about the environment or they care about immigration. And it's all narrative-based. And it's really unfortunate. But
it's a business.
I don't know what the future is, but it's so diffuse now, then I don't really know.
We no longer have a Cronkite.
Well, we don't even have like an anything. I really don't know where people, we were talking about images on social media. I mean, half the times even I don't know what's real. I'm pretty news, savvy. I don't even know what's real anymore.
Yeah.
There's been pictures floating around with Diddy and
fakes.
Kamala, and she's like, that's not me.
Yeah.
And the original photo came out. We were talking about that earlier, but yeah.
So, yeah, I want to get into that because that is very interesting.
We don't have to get into the Diddy stuff. Come on now.
No, but I want to go down my little memory way because, like I said, I'm growing up, and so your colleagues were like you said, Marvin Zindler,
Dave Ward, Sheriff Fryer, Ed Brandon, Bob Allen.
yeah,
The big guys.
yeah, Bob Allen, sportscaster,
Yeah.
What was the
Ed Brandon.
Ed Brandon, the weather guy, yeah, Sheriff
And then
Fryer.
Shara and Dave. Shara's
Kinda like-
KTRH.
Was Bob Boudreaux there?
Bob Boudreaux was there. Bob is now in Austria or somewhere. He does theater, like Shakespeare and stuff.
Bob Boudreaux was on the board of directors for a health club that I was a part of for a while.
But that was, I mean, these people, this were like so
weird.
He was a bathhouse. Thank you.
I mean, this is when I was growing up, you watched the 10 o'clock news every night. I did, and with my parents, or you watched the morning shows and you watch 5 o'clock. And now I don't think anyone watched 5 o'clock.
So listen, when I did the Sylvester Turner story back in '91, the big controversial story, we'd have an audience of 17% of the entire audience, right? Now they get 0.6.
Really?
It's a good night.
Including, that's just watching the broadcast on TV?
Watching the actual broadcast on TV. And look, that has been helpful to my company because the reality is, if it's on the internet now, people don't really know the difference between ABC, NBC, or Dolcefino Media. They don't. If it's well done and it's well presented and factually backed up, it doesn't matter, right? And my company was sort of born first out of the fact that I told the Disney lawyers where to shove it, right? And I was going to be leaving very soon anyway. But my company was based on the idea of a different funding model, right? And I'm really the only company like mine. I'm not saying that to brag, I think it's just the way it's worked out. I was lucky enough to be well known enough in my market to where I could actually get people to hire us to do an investigation. So rather than advertisers, right? People said, I want to investigate the corruption at the courthouse because I was on a case and I got totally screwed over because the judge and the lawyer were, roommates or lovers back in college, whatever, right? And so we go off and investigate. Now, we ain't lying for anyone. We have editorial control. And if it's there, it's there. If it's not, it's not. My only rules, and look, a lot of things are in black and white. We all know that. There's shades of gray and everything. But my rule is I got to be on the right side of a fight, okay? I had a guy early on when I started my company, ran a late-term abortion clinic, and offered me a lot of money to help them do stories to basically defend that industry. And I said, first of all, my wife would kill me, right? But second of all, I don't believe in what you do, so I'm not going to help you, right? And as long as I can do that and say that, there was a recent sheriff's race in Montgomery County, and the sheriff was a jerk, right? The sheriff there was a jerk. And his people had the nerve to call me and say, hey, we'd like you to help us with an investigation of Wesley Doolittle, right? And I said, no, but hell no. Tell your guy he's a jerk. I'm not going to help him. I mean, I have that luxury and I still do it, but we're not afraid of doing anything. And we'll investigate anyone. I was talking before I came on. I said, look, I hate to say this and it sounds crass. If the devil called me tomorrow and said, God has done a really horrible, unethical thing and an injustice, and he wanted to hire us to investigate it, we would do it. Because if it's wrong, it's wrong. And that's kind of my play.
Sure. What are some of the big stories? I know Pete wants to ask about some of the good old days stuff. Maybe we can loop back around to that.
Sure.
What are some of the bigger, more famous investigative journalism things you've done with your current company?
So look, my company has evolved a lot. We do a lot of public corruption investigations in small towns. It is really interesting how many redneck people have walked into my office, and they walk after they talk to me about a big corruption thing, and they'll walk out, and I'll say to my office manager, God, they're really nice guys. Really sounds like a great investigation, but there's no way they can afford to pay us to do it. I have paralegals, I have journalists, I have editors, and they turn out to be like wealthy enough to fund such an investigation. It's expensive. And the sad reality about my business is that when Channel 13 days, you could help somebody who had no money, no power, and you could go after the man, right? And I like that, right? Little old black lady in Third War could call you and tell you about something, and you could then go chase the suits downtown. My business doesn't allow that.
So what does it cost to hire you to investigative journalize someone that I have?
Kyle's got an issue with this
So
HOA.
it costs an awful lot less than you guys charge, but look, generically, the production of videos, right?
Okay.
The shooting, the editing, the writing costs about $7,500.
Okay.
$10,000. Okay. The investigative part is
Because I got two dudes I want investigated, so I'm keeping
we'll just keep a tab going at the end of the show.
7,500 to 10,000 times two people.
But it's very hard to put price tags on investigations, and I'll tell you why. And it's not.
Says a guy that charges a lot. That's the prelude to saying
No. Yeah.
What's the quaalude to saying, Kyle?
Because you don't know where it goes, right? A lot of times, and you guys know this because y'all are in this legal business. A lot of times, at least for me, I look for weakness, right? Like a dent in the force, okay, where you could go in, right? So you're investigating X, but you decide that Y is the weak link, and that may get you to X. Part of my investigative business is based a little bit on fishing. I grew up in Brooklyn, right? So I didn't really fish as a kid, right? Other than bodies, right? Out of the East River. But it's sort of fishing. Once you stick your pole in the water, once you do that first story, if it's truly corrupt, other people will come out of the woodwork, out of the surface, whether it's ex-girlfriends, whether it's people that got fired, right? The reality is we get a lot of information from people who don't have great motives, right? They got fired, they're pissed off. Or somebody who slept with someone, right? Who doesn't sleep with them anymore and is now as a scorned ex-lover or whatever, or political opponents. Those people then come forward and get you through that layer of the onion that you may not have been able to get through on your own, just looking at
So I start out looking into a guy named Peter Taaffe, okay? We don't know much about him. It's kind of a cold case. But then the trail gets hot and we find a weak link named Bill Ogden. Right?
Okay, yeah, heard of him.
But I gotta
Sounds hot.
as it goes further down the
I was going to work on
trail,
his fake names.
I gotta come up with more money.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Look, because it is what it is. When I started this, when I first left TV, I said, okay, I'm going to help people package investigations to make it easier for the media because that pressure to get stories on every day was now pretty much out of control. I realized after a little while that the media had just become chicken. Okay, they were chicken weenies. The corporations that run them don't want to start a fight. When
Owns all the media outlets.
Well, when I started out, I'll tell you, so let's say Disney, okay? So I worked for Disney, or I worked for Capital Cities, that bought ABC, that ABC merged with Disney. When I first started out, the libel insurance was like $100,000, right? It went to then $2 million. And I remember being called in once and asked if some story was worth $2 million to me. And I said, well, it's worth $2 million to me because it's not my money.
Right.
But it's worth $12 million to me,
Yeah.
right? But then they went to self-insurance, right? So
That's when you get in trouble.
then you start talking about real money, right?
So that comes out of the operating account.
That's right. And so it became, can't someone else do it first? I used to love that phrase. I like, really? Like, so who am I supposed to call? The Post is gone, right? And I was always a big believer in two newspapers because the Chronicle's a Chamber of Commerce paper and they're just a Democrat machine paper.
We're the biggest city with only one paper.
Yeah, and it's a paper that
Gets smaller and smaller
ignore
every day.
corruption that when it's not their particular party, they ignore corruption. And I'll accuse that to their face every day of the week. Look, I was always an equal opportunity offender, and I still try to be, but I always believed back then that I didn't care who you were. And my biggest problem in TV with my employers, became the fact that they just made it too hard to do it anymore. It got to be so intrusive that literally you'd have to send them every document, every interview, that you can't create television that way. So now I run a company where the crazy people are in charge. And then I'll come back to bite me.
Mickey Mouse is no longer pulling.
Mickey Mouse is no longer, well, he never pulled my string, which was part of my.
Quick little side note.
Well, beforehand, like those, when we're talking about the single paper, those opinions and non-factual allegations that were just made are exactly why we brought Dwayne on the show. And that is how I protect people from defamation.
Thank you.
I'm going to make it factual. So back in the olden days, the Houston Post was a newspaper that had this office building that was over there at 59 and 610 that now the Chronicle owns. But the Post, correct me if I'm wrong, Wayne, the Post would come in the morning and the Chronicle would come in the evening. Is that right?
I always got the Post in the morning. I was a fan of the Post.
Yeah.
In fact, the Hobby family owned the Post. And I'll tell you one of my original stories that made me become an investigative guy real quick. So I used to work at the Capitol. I was doing the radio news from the Capitol. And all the challenge guys, all the physically, mentally challenged guys, clean the place at night. And it was like 4 a.m, and I befriended them, and they came in to say, hey, the FBI is downstairs, and they were padlocking State Senator Gene Jones's office, okay? It had been a big raid, a public corruption raid of his office. I was the only Yahoo there. I was the only reporter there. So I get this, exclusive radio thing. I do it, and the next day I'm, like, looking for it in the paper, and I don't see it, and I'm going like I know I'm not a big deal. I'm just like some little small fry. But it's a story. Surely by tomorrow, and then the Post didn't do it. And then I found out that the Hobby family and Lieutenant Governor Bill Hobby was very close with Gene Jones, and then I connected, the whole 2 + 2 = 4, and I've never been a believer in sacred cows, because once you have one, you end up with a herd, right? And there was so many times over the years when people would come to my office, employees who would say, hey, you guys are investigating so-and-so, and he's married to my ex-wife, and she thinks that I'm the one that got you in on this. Can you guys, not do this? And we go, get the hell out of our office. Who are you? So I've never been a sacred cow guy. And I've always been, because I'm from Flatbush, I'm from Brooklyn, and I fought Puerto Rican kids when I was a little Italian kid in New York. I've never been intimidated by people. I'm afraid of heights, but not people. And I think it's really served me well.
That's got to be the position that's the point of being a journalist, right? You got to stay objective, don't be beholden to other people.
Yeah, but objectivity is an interesting thing because, look, I've never been a big believer in the concept of just tell that side, that's your story. Investigative guys like me who are on TV only during sweeps, right? That's back then, right? We came on in February, May, November. We weren't there to come on and do this boring pablum, right? Of, gee, look at this, right? We were in there to sell outrage to a certain degree, to get people. Look, I would not spend 6 weeks investigating a story if I didn't think it was screwed up. If I investigated something for 4 weeks and I didn't think it was screwed up, it would never be on the air. So there was a predicate, right? There's sort of like I don't know where that editorial line is, but there's a line somewhere where you get over it and you go, there's a story here, right? Yep. There may be some explanations of some of the BS on the sidelines, but this is a real story. There were times I followed people for 2 months, public officials.
Hold on, Kyle. Usually, Wayne, I have to take a break if someone uses a legal term and explain to the non-lawyer audience what they mean. But in this case, it's going to be sweeps. And I usually am thinking of Yvette Ogden, who's Bill's mom.
She knows what sweeps are.
But she knows what sweeps are. So I'm going to actually explain it.
Yeah, this goes to
so back in the olden days, the networks would have certain weeks where the Nielsen ratings, they'd really look on that, and that would set prices.
I know what the Nielsen ratings are.
February, May, and November.
Okay.
So sweeps is when the networks would put out their best stuff and try to get their ratings as high as they could to get their.
I hate to tell you guys this, but my generation, the only thing we know about sweeps came from the movie Anchorman.
Okay, good. Yeah,
they talk about sweeps.
So in the days of Netflix and all that, there's no sweeps anymore.
So I believe that you don't do it unless you think it's wrong.
Yeah.
I never. So fairness. I think fairness is fine, right? But I've never done an investigation of someone that they said, you know what, I thought you were really fair. I don't think I've ever had someone call me after.
Don't you usually give the other side an opportunity to comment or give their position?
Oh, sure. Look, look in my business now. Mm-hmm. We give the other side a chance to comment.
I mean, they're going to like it.
95% don't. And the ones that do, if they actually have a good explanation, I'll go back and
it's not a story.
Take a look because it may not even be a story. Look, as mean-spirited as some people think guys like me are, the last thing I want to do is say something that's false. And so when I get these letters, like I got in this latest thing, saying I did defamed, invasion of privacy, all the stuff that we're always accused of doing, I always go back to tell me a statement that was false, and I would be more than happy to go look at it. And if it's wrong, I will be glad to correct it. But this sort of oh, yeah, nanny. What do I do with that? I mean, I wouldn't have put it on if I didn't think it was true in the first place. This whole notion that really virtually any reporter would do something in reckless disregard for the truth, which was the libel standard, is sort of absurd, right? Those people are so limited in number, I believe, that would do it intentionally or with reckless disregard. They may get it wrong.
So there's the problem is especially in journalism, is that libel and slander all fall under the defamation. If you're not a public figure, you don't have to prove a reckless disregard for the truth.
Absolutely true.
And so that's where you can really step into something.
And I do a lot of family and justice stuff, which involves people that are not public figures.
Yeah, you're make sure you are acting very reasonable at all times.
Still two legal questions.
Yes.
Is whether someone's a public figure a question of law for the judge? That's one. Two, can you walk us through this takedown? So if something's published and you think's wrong and you get a lawyer and you say that's wrong and you give the media person an opportunity to take it down, how does that work as far as damages?
Okay, so for a non-public figure, Texas actually has the Texas Defamation Mitigation Act.
Good.
And so a non-public figure can reach out to the publisher and ask for a correction and retraction. In doing so, the outlet can then say, produce to me why you believe it's true
or untrue,
untrue, and then they make their correction. If they don't do that, then that's when punitives can kick in.
Okay. All right.
When it comes to a public standard, you have to prove malice and reckless disregard regardless.
And does the judge decide who's a public figure? Is that a legal question?
So, I have never really run into it where anyone has successfully argued it. I know that they fought a little bit on the Sandy Hook cases that because those parents had interjected themselves in front of Congress, because I think they did testify on guns, some gun restriction stuff. That they were, but or just doing news interviews as an individual. If something happens to you and you do an interview, that doesn't interject in. But for the most part, it's not really a battle. You kind of know. But at the end of the day, it can go to the jury as a question.
Now, in a couple of cases,
a question
where there was an argument over whether someone was a limited public figure.
Limited public figures, when you get that's when you get real. That can get spicy.
Yeah,
because you might come at me for something in my personal life, but because 5 years ago I went on and spoke to the public on a completely separate issue, I'm a limited public figure when it comes to that, but not for everything else in my entire life. And so that's that gray area. Limited public figures, when they were like, well, it's not really black and white. What do we have here? It's like limited public figure. That's what we'll call it. But for the most part, the judge determines it. This is a Bankston question, by the way. Mark Bankston is way smarter than me and briefs this way.
And he's giving us CLE next, Monday on this issue? On
next Monday or Monday after? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I know that it can go to a jury.
It can go to a jury, but judges, and I had a few judges that I wish no harm to, but were horrible judges who were very bad for us as reporters along the way. And it could affect all kinds of things. What you're allowed to introduce as evidence, what a reporter knows before they publish their story. In the Turner case, I was not allowed to show evidence that I had before I did the story that the judge believed was prejudicial to the jury. I'm going, well, And well, that's exactly why it's important.
Yeah, Judge, that's when you say, Judge, it's 100% prejudicial. That's why I'm entering it. It's not unfairly prejudicial. Everybody forgets that unfairly word.
Yes. So,
especially, including judges.
I do like it when other lawyers say that. This is prejudicial, and I say, that's why I'm here. There's going to be a bunch more of that.
That's why I'm doing it.
Every time they say that, I'm like, oh, Judge, there's no doubt. This is extremely prejudicial, but it's not unfair. And that's the test.
Okay, two things. One, I'll just make this observation.
Okay.
CBS should do a TV show on you, because you ever like watch like Tracker or any of these shows like The Equalizer, where someone comes in and they've got a problem, and this person who apparently must have independent wealth.
Country. I've been asked to be in cases in probably 8-9 states by now, where somebody's in a small town, right? They've slept with the mayor's niece's daughter, got her pregnant. They're now in family court, right?
Did you meet Bill before tonight?
Yes. And there's some, actually I did. But there's the local sheriff, right, is the cousin of the sister's brother, right? And you get screwed in the court. And so who comes in and levels that playing field? And people in a lot of these places, like I'm in the Valley right now, people in a lot of these places are...
You go to the Valley?
I do.
That's the Wild West. You're a brave man.
I was assaulted by the mayor of San Benito's brother the other day. What a yahoo he was. But
in his opinion.
And none of his opinion. It is a strong opinion that
I can defend that on truth. You know, the defense to defamation is truth.
Truth is an ultimate defense.
I think he was more like a weasel than a yahoo. I think to be fair.
Would the defamation be that he was assaulted or that he's a yahoo?
Well, I think he was assaulted. Fact. Yeah, weasel, in our opinion.
Got it.
Because obviously assault also has some component of opinion as well. That's what you're curious.
He was charged with it. It's good enough for me.
Oh, okay.
Oh, shit. Okay. Then you can say that for sure.
What's
San Benito.
down San Benito?
So, other question. So, Wayne, if there was a board certification in kind of storytelling, anyone who's seen your stuff, you are very persuasive and very entertaining, and you for a trial lawyer standpoint, even though you're not a lawyer, you're very excellent at that, which is what a trial lawyer does. Do you ever consult with trial lawyers on storytelling and how to craft a story? Because your videos are so
powerful. So my company's been asked by a number of lawyers to help them do what I call internal production of videos that they use in mediation, right?
Like day in
the life,
yeah.
But also liability questions, right? Construction accident. Investigate the liability in a way that makes it pretty clear that it presented to a jury in that way. Look, I don't know what these skill sets are. Like I'm pretty good at looking in a room and figuring out who the crooks are pretty quick. I know what that is.
Right there.
Which is why before I even walked in, I figured you guys. Okay?
It's the one in the gray jacket trying to sell everybody drugs.
But I've always, and this was Channel 13 taught me this. I think Marvin helped teach me this. We're communicating to people on their level. I don't mean to insult them. I'm just saying we're regular guys communicating to people in regular. We don't need fancy words. We don't like some newspaper people at the New York Times who want to impress somebody with all the commas and parentheses they could put in a story. Like we're like straight shooting in your face mofos.
That's a Texas trial lawyer these days.
And slime in the ice machine is not a nuanced statement.
No, but I think it's the way people understand it, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people in the professional world try to make them seem smarter than they need to be to communicate to people.
You talk to them, not at them.
That's right. And I think they get it. And they look, people, especially guys like me, trust me, I can do a video and I can have 20 comments of, I hate you and I wish you were dead, right? When I was at TV once, I got Bell's palsy. It was right before ratings month, right? I was going to be on the air. I got Bell's palsy, which is that droopy thing in your eye and everything. And I literally looked like Shrek. And the station said, you still have to go on the air, okay? So I go on the air, and within like an hour or two, I got all these emails and texts from people saying, I'm glad you had a stroke. I hope you're good. I hope you're going to die. Okay.
And that's before Twitter and
before Twitter, right? So you get those people, and then you get the same response. Now you get those people, but you also get the people saying Wayne for president, right? So I've always been a very polarizing guy. And what I found is people love me as long as I'm not peeing in their porridge. But as soon as I pee in their porridge, then all of a sudden I'm the worst guy and the fairest guy in the world. And look, and like this latest story we did on Judge Keogh in Montgomery.
Yeah, I was about to ask, what's up with that?
Classic example of someone who I never had any issues with, right? A woman comes to me who says she was sexually harassed. I find out he's resigned from this church, that he made some confessions to the elders of the church. There was a recording of it. Called the judge up, said, hey, got some questions for you. And he agreed to come talk to us. And I said, I'll come there. And he said, no, I'll come to you, right? Nobody ever does that, right? So he comes to my office, and I assumed he was going to come in and say, hey, I had a weak moment, whatever, praying to my, whatever he was going to say, right? And instead, he lied to me. I mean, he just sat there and literally denied things that I knew to be true. Not like I suspected, but knew to be true. And so I mean, he's been around. I've been around a long time, right? Most people would never come to talk to me.
I wouldn't. If you asked me to come in for a story about
but
me.
If you do, don't lie to me, because I ain't going to have you come in if I don't know what I'm going to ask about.
You never ask a question you don't know the answer to.
Yeah, and so I'd say when he left, my photographer and I looked at each other like, Ching, what the hell just happened? Because he really came in here and tried to snow us.
Was it recorded?
Yes.
Oh. Check his Facebook out. It's great.
Okay.
Yeah. And to me, it was just, and so then I got the actual audio tape from this elders meeting, which was a meeting of 10 people.
I mean, an audio recording of that.
Somebody.
Old people.
Not me.
Elders.
Not me. I'm blamed for more tapes that I had nothing to do with. Mm-hmm. I am. I'm always blamed. Like I'm some big wiretapper. I've been sued for wiretapping.
I dip both these guys in water before we have a conversation about anything.
I don't even know how to get my email on my phone without tech support. But I'm always accused of wiretapping. I was sued by Lloyd Kelly years ago, part of his litigation against my station when he was there. And we had a hidden camera at a public event, and he sued us for wiretapping under the theory, I think, that the hidden camera had a wire in it. And we kept on trying to say, but that's not what wiretapping is, right? It's the interception. Sure, there's a wire in the minicam, but that doesn't mean anything, right? So why it's a single-party consent state?
It is. But even this latest threatening letter I got from his lawyers. And look, I've never been a guy that took kindly to threats, okay? If someone says, hey, you said on April 10th, Ogden, was stealing computers from the law office. And it wasn't actually the 10th, it was the 12th and 13th. Then that's something you can correct. And you should correct. And I would want to correct. But I never seem to get those factually false things. I seem to get the taint fair rule. There was a lawyer once in one of my appeals cases that told the appeals judges that what I did wasn't false, but he said it taint fair, Your Honor. Mm-hmm. I swear. It taint fair.
That's pretty good. I'm going to use that.
So,
can I speak?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, because mine's a wider.
Kyle, go ahead. Question.
And a couple short ones.
Okay.
Worst person you've ever interviewed. Not like from an entertainment standpoint, like from a morals, like
reported opinions by the Texas Supreme Court, everything.
Yeah, so we were the first media defendant to go before the Texas Supreme Court after they were lambasted for allegedly being on the tape from the tobacco stuff, right? So I was like a little flounder in the sea of, let's punish the media. But we won at the end, but it was a very expensive win. And the reality of that story, as things marinate over time, there are some stories you do that 30 years later you go, you know what? Actually, the other guy was the bigger weasel, right? I picked on the wrong guy, right? There are some of those. But that's a story that if you were going to tell it today, based on what you know, it would be worse than what you told then. But it was a very bad time in the 90s. There was like the Pinto stuff with Dayline, where they blew up the car.
Oh, yeah.
There was just a lot
of tobacco, breast implants, pen.
Because the media investigative reporting was very, very aggressive in that period. And I've made much of the libel law, and one of the really bad things that came out of the Turner case was something called libel by implication. Okay? So I could do a video of you two guys going to the pool together, right?
Me and Bill?
You and Bill.
Going to a pool
I'm
together.
trying to be like sort of metrosexual here.
What?
You and Bill.
What very exciting fantasy
No,
you're
hold on.
imagining.
Hold on. You guys are both going with your towels, and you flip the towel at him, and he flips the towel back at you, and I simply show that video.
I feel seen.
Am I implying that you guys are having some, special relationship? And I would say no. But the Supreme Court in that Turner case created this very bizarre libel by implication and libel by omission.
Yeah.
So what is that? Unless the courts were going to become editors of every story to decide what should and shouldn't be included, you have to leave it to the publisher of the story to make editorial decisions. So you can get sued for them.
That was shortly after they repealed the Truth in Media Act, right?
Yeah. And it was a horrible decision that they never really enforced, but it created all this uncertainty as to what do you mean by that? Because in the Kelly case, he actually sued over that because he went with his kids, he went to a splashdown place with a female employee. Now, I think she sued me, her husband sued me, he sued me, all because they say I implied they were having a relationship. And I said, the video is what it is.
Bill, how come you never take me to Splashdown or anything fun?
Because I know what I do to you with the towel, buddy.
All right, and the cite on the case.
All right, and the cite on
the citation on the Turner v. KTRK Television Inc. is Supreme Court of Texas, opinion written by Tom Phillips.
Never liked him. No, I'm just kidding.
38 Southwest 3rd 103 TEX 2000.
Yeah, good case.
So if you want to read these, if you want to read the facts of the case, look it up. You can Google it.
And if you want to really read a good opinion, look at the appeals court opinion before it.
The 14th Court
because the 14th Court of Appeals.
The 14th created yet?
The 14th Court of Appeals, I think it was the 14th.
Right, it was first the 14th. Basically.
Yeah, that did an opinion that was so in reverse of what the jury found that they basically said not only was the story true, that the facts actually, as I've always maintained, were worse than what I suggested.
Sounds like you guys didn't lobby the Texas Supreme Court correctly.
Well, I don't know. And look, at the time, it bothered me more than it did today, but I think it did, over my journalism career, create a more scrutiny.
What year was this?
96, 7 was when we got sued.
I don't know about that, but the 14th Court of Appeals site is 987 Southwest 2nd 100, and that is a 1999 opinion.
Yeah, so I think we did the story in 91. We did it about 7 days before the election, for the vote. And we blew up. I mean, we did. He lost like 17 points.
Yeah. I remember
this. It was a Sunday night, 10 o'clock story, and Sunday night at 10 o'clock on Channel 13 was Bob Lanier.
Yeah.
When did Lawrence v. Texas come out?
I don't know.
Nick, right in that time?
If it wasn't one of my lawsuits, I don't know. I'm here as a color witness.
Okay. Next short question, real quick. You got to read a paper in Texas.
Newspaper?
Yeah, newspaper.
Or magazine outlet.
All terrible?
Yeah.
Even monthly?
Yeah.
All right, how about
Texas Tribune?
I like the Texas Tribune. If you have
Tribune,
one, Tribune is pretty good.
Okay,
that was the end of your...
Wait, what about the Statesman?
The Statesman,
the Daily Worker?
used to be better.
Used to be, back when Fred Zipp was still there.
Yeah, used to be better.
All right.
The Chronicle is... I know...
You're not a big fan?
I'm not a fan, no. And I've tried to talk to them, and there are some things that they just ignore in, I think, a very unethical way.
Didn't they just get a new editor?
Corruption. Yeah, look, I talked to some people over there that are in management.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to the Chronicle in the last 5 years?
I've never been. Yeah, they always come to me.
Go. The place is literally a ghost town. There are like 900 desks and like 25 people in there.
Do they have a lot of people working remote?
No, it's a ghost. It's just there's just not that many people left.
They were too late to the internet.
That brings me to my question. Okay, so I've been back to my nostalgia days where you had the Post and Chronicle and 3 news stations. 3 networks. So where are we now? Where an influencer, an 18-year-old, can have 50 million views.
Yep.
And whoever, the Peter Jennings of today, like no one's watching.
That's where we are.
Peter Jennings who wouldn't get 50 million a year.
Well, Tom Brokaw,
Stone Phillips,
all them. So where are we going now? Where, you have no idea who these people are. Stone Phillips is probably still at it, but where
is Stone Phillips still alive?
Yeah. Wayne, so this is your area. I know no one knows where it's going to go, but where do you think it's going to go? Are the legacy news stations gone?
Yes.
Okay, just a matter of time.
And look, I really worry about the young people. It's like an old man now, but the younger generation, because I just don't know where they're going to get substantive content that there's any ability to really prove up is true.
Every morning I do the same 4 websites. So I do the Drudge Report, Huffington Post, and then I look at Breitbart to see what Breitbart says. And then I take all 4 of them and I figure out where the kind of objectiveness is in the middle.
I go to Drudge because I feel like he does pull.
They used to be substantially they were way more conservative than they are now.
Drudge was very conservative. Now their headlines are so to the left.
Oh my God,
the world, that it's almost kind of insane. So I used to really like Drudge, and I still listen to it or watch it, but I don't really respect it, and I don't know where to go. I mean, I'm a news guy.
It's funny because I knew exactly where his photo was, but right after the debate, the next morning when I woke up, I took a screenshot of it. It's like picture of Trump, and it says, "The night Trump lost it all." And right after that debate performance at the end.
Yeah, I don't know if he's more liberal or just not a Trump guy, and everything's kind of very.
It's Trump.
Yeah,
pretty obvious.
But yeah, so I mean, even those like CNN and Fox have the resources to.
I don't know how they have failed. CNN, I think, on some nights has like 85,000 people watching.
CNN was way down the list.
And they're great at international news, right? And stuff like that, and breaking news. But their thirst about politics, and I'm not criticizing it because I care about politics too, but I don't see how they make money. I really don't.
Just going to the AssociatedPress.com.
Look, I just don't. The quality, I don't mean to be mean to everybody. The quality of the people that are even going into journalism now and their context of the world, especially in local stations where they move into a town for 3 years. How many people do you read that just got here 3 years ago and then are leaving? Back when I was at 13, those people were all there like 15, 20 years. They all grew up there. They knew the town. Nobody knows the towns anymore. Not just here, any town. Pick a town, right? Most of the reporters have been here just a couple of years. There is no context. There is no political history. There is no.
You gotta put down roots and try and get punched in the face by the sheriff's brother.
Yes, or the mayor's cousin or somebody.
Yeah. Take some licks.
Totally agree.
But I think all the big ones, the CNNs, Foxes, MSNBC, there's very little just news reporting, like just the facts, right? Unless it's some hurricane or some shooting or something, and hey, here's what's happening. But most of the content is just opinion,
because they are now aiming for their particular slice of the audience.
Yeah,
it's not just about being first or being the most substantive. It's about
sexiest.
It's not even about being sexiest. It's the slice of the overall viewers. We know this many people are liberal. Liberals want to hear liberal stuff. They want to hear mean stuff about Donald Trump.
Pander.
Conservatives want to hear mean stuff about Kamala Harris, right? Or see videos of Joe Biden mumbling and gumbling, right? So they know who their audience is. They're now directing their content toward their audience. When I was in local TV, look, we knew our audience wasn't like the folks on the West Side, right? Our audience was the folks in Pasadena and Liberty and Dayton.
Deer Park.
Conroe and Crosby.
Backbone of the city.
That's what. Peter lives in the West Side.
Nothing, except those weren't really our viewers. Those were Channel 2 viewers, as a general rule. Right?
I was West U, and then we were right by your station, so I always.
But
show.
So if something happened in Pasadena, we were all over it, right?
Thank you for your service.
Those were our people. Thank you, my pleasure. Those were our people, right? When we go cover a flood in Liberty, everyone would be shooting in their faces because they were all wanted somewhere by some law enforcement agency. I don't know what the hell.
and he just shits on liberty.
But that's just like Peter wanted to define sweeps. We also need to define shitting their face.
And we'd go to stick a camera in someone's face. They would cover their face because they were afraid someone would see them in a wanted poster somewhere.
I watched a couple of your videos this afternoon.
Uh-oh.
And
Working hard during the day, are you?
well, I got you just.
When you have money like Kyle,
He watches a lot worse videos during the day than
No, seriously. So there's several videos, and I notice there'll be these lawyers standing around or people standing outside of the courthouse, and you approach them with the camera, and they immediately put their fist in front of the camera, and you, on several of these videos, you say, mistake number one, you put your hand in front of my camera. All right, so practical advice for people that might be tailed at some point.
again,
We got the Dolcefino crew is chasing us down. Do you just turn and smile and say, hey, guys, no comment?
Have a nice day.
Have a nice day?
Hope you're doing good.
Because putting your fist in the camera doesn't help anybody.
I will give one tip.
Please.
Years and years ago, I was investigating cops who had the most sustained IAD complaints, right? And there was one guy who had like 50. So we were like set up on him, right? He comes out of the police station, and I go up to him, and just as I'm going up to him, he goes, are you still going to the bookstores, Wayne? And
Okay.
I wasn't, but what do you do with that? You can't use it, right? Explain it.
Right? So just like a subtle insult back that you can't respond to and then just drift into the back.
Yeah, I always see it on the porn sites. Wayne, you're still on those porn sites? I mean, what do you say to it? You can't use that clip.
I always say, hey, Wayne, how you doing, man? Are you okay? And then you say, oh, I'm here to talk about this. Like, well, before we get to that, what are you doing inside?
About you. Okay, that is great advice. I'm going to use that.
Just be like, tell me about you.
That's really good.
It's a real conversation.
Really weird. And you still suffering?
Is the Valtrex working, Wayne?
Yeah, I always thought that was a very interesting. I thought about it all these years. Like, what do you do with that? Because we couldn't use it, right?
Nice.
Have you ever thought about
That's when you and the camera person run back towards the parking lot and then re-walk up.
Yeah.
Have you thought about
Praying he doesn't do it again.
Have you thought about writing a book about
You know what? I remember things. I don't really. There's a lot of things I've done over the years. You know, I still get people. Years ago, some guy back when I was younger, some guy walked up to me in a bar and sent me over 2 drinks, and I went over. And of course, I drank them because I was a journalist. And I went over to the guy and I said, thanks a lot. And I said, do I know you? And he goes, you probably don't remember me, but you sent my mother and father to prison. And me being the consummate smartass said, how are they having a good time? That's easily. What else do you say, right? But look, if I was someone that even read books, I would consider writing one. But I'm not a big book reader. I'm not.
That's what I said earlier.
I'm just and back on the legal thing real quick. I have been accused in courts of being this expert communicator, right? That has these secret messages in the words I use. Can I tell you something? It's true.
Like Illuminati?
Like I have a special. No, not that. Like I use a certain word
Like hypnosis.
because I'm trying to communicate a certain thing, right? As part of my master skill communicative brain.
You're doing it to me right now. I can see it. I can feel it.
I mean, look, I'm a guy from Brooklyn, right? I didn't finish college.
Before it was gentrified.
I mean, I was a DJ that turned into a news guy, right? I just happen to know how people talk, right? And I think I happen to just know how regular people talk, and so I can communicate that way. But people sometimes gave me so much more credit than I really deserved that I really sat there and said, if I use the word if instead of but, I'm communicating some other big message. When I don't even barely know what the prepositions were.
I don't have time. My brain doesn't have time to put that much thought into my words.
But look, I will say one thing. We're in a new media. My company is part of that new media, right? People ask me how I can be a journalist and a consultant, and I say, why not, right? I'm a journalist, and I'm also a consultant. I give people advice and strategy on stuff. Lawyers hire me. Companies hire me for advice on crises and stuff like that. I also run social media platforms. YouTube. I'm not a social media guy. I mean, I'm like an old school journalist, but I have young people that know how to do that stuff, and we're on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and communicating to people the best way we can about things they need to know in their community. And I don't have 15 million viewers, right? Never will. I've got like 70,000 followers and more every month.
Well, you're just about to get 71,000.
And your audience, what, another 200 or 300?
70,001.
Yeah. So, but it's all part of the new landscape, right? And people are just going to have to figure out who they think is credible. A lot of people think Joe Rogan's credible for them, right? So they listen to his podcast. People are going to get their information. The sad reality is people are already such low information voters. And look at Fort Bend County, where the guy running for commissioner was indicted for peddling fake racism, and the county judge is accused of knowing about it. Who in Fort Bend County knows any of this? Nobody watches the news anymore, right? So where do you go to learn about your town, especially a smaller town, when even in the big city they don't cover?
Well, you just do what all the grandparents do. You go on Facebook, you see one meme with zero fact checking, and then you just start spreading it.
Bingo.
So Wayne, where can people find you if they're lawyers who need help or individuals who...
So just people that want to watch.
Our message machine at work saying, if you're calling to sue us, hang up now. I didn't even know that. My phone says that. Hang up now. So Dolcefino Media. It's dolcefino.com, Dolcefino Media on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. X. We're on X. We're everywhere, right? Instagram.
Not hard to find.
Worth a watch. Well done. It's well done, too.
And look, we do it the old school way. And I am blessed. Seriously, I've been used to it a long time. Love this town. I'm blessed that I've been able to keep doing what I do and what I did at Channel 13. I mean, there's very few people around the country, and I have other reporters in other cities say, how'd you pull this off? Because it's very hard to pull off, right? And I'm a word of mouth business, and we get into the shit, as they say.
Yeah,
we do. And
I'm a big fan. I've been watching for a while.
Thanks, man. It's a lot of fun, and I'm going back to San Benito in hopes of getting assaulted by another of the mayor's relatives. But look, we try to do good stuff. I ain't gonna do it unless I think it's right. And people want to sue me, then, there's a courthouse and it doesn't cost that much. I mean, have a good time.
Well, I'll say this. I mean, you obviously report on stuff and, people have strong feelings one way or the other.
Sure.
But my view is the fourth estate journalism is what's made this country strong and people accountable. So I appreciate the role of journalists in the society.
I think we're doomed with the future if we don't figure out a way to, I don't know how we put this genie back in the bottle, but I'm seriously concerned that nobody's going to know what the hell's going on. And I think the government likes it that way.
Yeah, everybody keeps getting reelected.
They like it this way.
Well, that's food for thought. This could be another, 2 or 3 hour.
Well, it was wonderful to have you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I want to invite you back on. I feel like we should do I got a whole lot more questions to ask.
Yeah, I can't
count on the podcast now just because you guys invited me here.
Well, if you invite me on, I want to just ask more questions. I got a whole bunch more, but
even better, since we had you on ours, you can investigate Kyle in his personal life and expose him to even trade.
I will say there are some things we do for free. I mean, it's not often, but there are some grants.
But when they have that kind of hair with that kind of face,
Bill off the streets.
Bill's got plenty of money. Don't worry.
Oh, please. Kyle's the rich one.
Well, look, it was my pleasure, guys. It was fun chatting with you. You're all cool guys.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Go to Wayne's sites that he told you before. Also follow us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, TikTok, Facebook, X, and
Instagram.
Fantastic.
Thank
you very much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.